Welcome to More Than Our Story, where we share to inspire and remind us that we're never alone in our struggles. I'm Daniel Height, and today I'm joined by Lizzie Stewart, who alongside her brother Chris make up Team Stewart Racing. Together they have raced the Brighton Marathon, an outlaw triathlon 70.3, and this August we'll be tackling Ironman Talon. Lizzie, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's sorry Chris isn't here, but hopefully you guys don't get too fed up with me having a chat today.
So Liz, I was introduced to you and Chris through Rob Sears, who mentioned he met you guys at an outlaw triathlon. And I was so blown away with what you guys are doing and planning to do. I needed to have you on to share your stories. So Lizzie, I'll start obviously with you. So you're an accomplished triathlete. You started racing at 10. You competed at the Ironman World Championships in Kona. I'm guessing it was your parents who are both Ironman.
They are.
Who got you into it?
So actually, it was my school who got me into triathlon. So my PE teacher was a triathlete, and she hosted a kids triathlon for all of us to kind of give it a go. I'd been a swimmer since, well, pretty much as soon as I had my vaccinations. My dad was chucking me in the water to get me used to, being in the water, getting used to swimming. And my mum was like, well, you enjoy swimming, you enjoy cycling, you enjoy running. Why not put them all together and give it a go? And from that moment, I've been hooked. And I came back home after my race and rather cockily said to my parents, oh, I did a triathlon, I bet you can't do one, which meant they signed up for one. And one thing led to another, and they ended up doing an Ironman, where we first saw a team like my brother and I back in 2014. So it's, all this started quite a few years ago now.
So if I'm not mistaken, you're doing Ironman Swansea in 2 days?
I am, yes. So I'm doing that one solo. We decided that the hills weren't very Chris suitable. And it's also a nice opportunity for me to see what I'm capable of doing without Chris.
It is a notoriously challenging course. Did you pick that to kind of serve as a tune-up race for Ironman Talon with Chris?
A little bit, but unfortunately here in the UK, most of the courses are quite hilly, and I didn't really feel like travelling out of the country just for a 70.3, so chose the home one, relatively-ish local.
So Talon will be your third Ironman, but you're a self-professed 70.3 fan.
Yes.
What is it about the half distance that you love so much?
I just love how you've got the time that you can really get into it. You've got the endurance-y side of things, but then you can really go into the hurt lock. You can really push yourself to the limit. And I just found with sprints and standards, by the time I got into kind of my rhythm and kind of really got into the part that I can actually push this, it was the end of the section and I was moving on to the next one. And the opposite problem with the fulls, I actually found that I started to get a little bit tedious with it. And I did a couple of 70.3s. Did my first one at 19 and absolutely fell in love with the distance. And yeah, it's normally I'd try and do 2 or 3 a year, try and spread them out a little bit. Obviously with the life it gets quite busy, but I absolutely love it. I did New Zealand half Ironman World Championships in 2024. I was actually 5.5 months pregnant with my son, which was so he's got a little Ironman trophy as well, or a little Ironman medal, I should say.
So speaking of getting busy, you are a mother to a 1-year-old. I believe your son is 1 now.
Yeah.
And you're a full-time university student. You've spoken about experiencing imposter syndrome due to pushing yourself to the limits.
Yeah. 'Cause,
What have you learned about silencing those doubts?
Yeah.
What have you learned about silencing those doubts? What have you learned about silencing those doubts? What have you learned about silencing those doubts? What have you learned about silencing those doubts?
I just learned to roll with them, in all honesty. I know that the doubts are going to be there. Whenever you're on a big stage like an Ironman race, like 70.3, there will always be that competition. And for me, if I didn't have that little voice in my head saying, you can do better, you can push harder, I wouldn't be doing it because I wouldn't be excited and nervous and have that little voice telling me I can do it, I can push harder. And actually, maybe I'm not doing something right. And maybe I do need to change things. But for me, the day that that little voice goes, that's going to be the end of my triathlon.
So, Lizzie, you formed Team Stewart Racing last year with your brother Chris. Now,
Yeah.
Chris is not your typical athlete. Can
No.
you share a little bit about what makes him so special?
So when Chris was born, there was unfortunately an accident which led Chris to being asphyxiated at birth, which led to multiple profound disabilities, including things like cerebral palsy, epilepsy, and a whole bunch of other, a whole laundry list of issues. And but that's never stopped him from loving it. He's always loved being in the water. He's loved sailing. He loves the wind in his face. My parents started running with him in 2014, 2015. They actually did Brighton Marathon with him in 2016. And our dad actually held the world record with Chris, for the fastest half marathon pushing a wheelchair. And he loves it. And why wouldn't we put the effort in to make sure that he can join in something that the whole family loves? And when he so clearly loves it as well, we'll do anything possible to make it happen for him.
How many races have you guys done together now?
So we're still quite new to this. So we've only done two half Ironmans, two half marathons, sorry, one half Ironman and a standard distance triathlon. Again, we try and spread them out quite a lot because Chris and his disabilities takes him a while to recover, and if he gets poorly, he can deteriorate quite quickly. So we try not to cram too much in so that it still becomes enjoyable for him.
So, what inspired you to bring Chris along for the Ironman journey?
Well, back in 2014, when our dad and our mum saw Team, I think it's Trevelling, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. They're a brother duo in Copenhagen doing the Ironman. And our dad said to me, oh, why don't you do that with Chris one day? Being 13 at the time, idea was shot down pretty quickly. And then a few years later, obviously, we found Team Hoyt, and we found the Peace Brothers. I don't know if you've heard of them, they're from America. And I just saw how amazing they are. And I thought, well, if they can do it, why can't we? Why can't we do this? And why can't we get Chris to the start line and to the finish line of something that we all love and something that he enjoys?
And he can say he's an Ironman as well.
Exactly. I mean, he's the only one in the family who's not an Ironman. So, he's got to step his game up.
So, can you share a little bit about how you guys compete?
So for the swim, Chris sits in a kayak. It's one that he lies down in, so we've got quite a lot of padding around to keep him warm. That then is attached to a rope, which then attaches to a waistband, which goes around my waist. I then pull him along in the kayak for the swim. We normally get sent off about 10 minutes before all the other athletes, because obviously with a big kayak, we don't want to get in people's way. And the last thing we want to do is another swimmer either knock Chris into the water or we injure somebody. Then we're always allowed help getting Chris out of the water and getting him into his race chair. For the bike, his race chair's front wheel comes off, and there's like a boom. If you know the kids' trailers, that you pull the kids around, it's essentially it attaches like that, which then means I can pull him along on the bike. The only downside is I've only got the brakes on my bike, so it can be a little bit scary going down some steep hills at times, but Chris absolutely loves it. And then for the run, we just deattach my bike, put its front wheel back on, and off we go. So we only have to transfer him the once. Obviously, for the longer distances, we try and get him out, give him a change, give him something to eat, give him a bit of a stretch because it's not comfortable sitting in a chair all day. But for shorter distances, it can be a relatively quick transition for us.
So, what other special accommodations are necessary to ensure you both have a successful race?
So for the swim, we normally have a specialist water safety with us, who just follows us around because I can't see Chris when he's behind me. I've not got eyes in the back of my head, as much as my son thinks I do. I don't. Um, and so it just means that if there's an issue with Chris, they can alert me and I can sort it out. It also means that if other people are around us, they can be guided away from the kayak, and it just gives us that bit more security. We're also allowed to keep a mobile phone in our back pocket, which is in a zipped up pocket, purely for the fact that if there's an emergency, I am then able to contact the correct people. And I know Ironman have now banned mobile phones, but we've got it in writing that we're allowed to have the phone with us. We're allowed additional support in transition. I can't lift Chris by myself due to spinal rods. So we're allowed 2 extra people to come in and help us move him about. It also just means that I'm able to sort myself out, and then mum and dad are able to sort Chris out whilst we're, in transition. And you know how long Ironman transitions can take. And then for the run, it's just us. So when we're actually doing the events, it's just me and him. But within the transition to each discipline, we're allowed the additional assistance.
Have you noticed any difference between individual races within one organization and then between different organizations? So like Outlaw and Ironman, for example?
I mean, we've had a couple of events turn around to us and say it's not suitable for Chris to race. And we'd always much rather somebody say that to us instead of us turning up to them and then them turning around and actually saying, hang on a minute, you can't race with the wheelchair. So it is disappointing to get the email back saying, we're really sorry, we can't accommodate you at X race, but it's going to happen. And but we always try and get in contact with the race organisers before we go to a race, purely so that we can discuss with them Chris's needs, what we need to make sure that the race works well, what they need from us. Some organisers like to see our equipment. Some organisers have asked for proof that we can actually compete together safely. So again, it's just about working together. Whereas obviously as a solo athlete, I can just go online and fill in my details and off I go. But it takes a bit more communication and a bit more organisation, I'd say.
So you've talked about how quickly Chris can flip from being healthy to needing assistance. What kind of assistance are you referring to, and has that ever occurred during a race? I'm sure it's happened during training.
Yes, so touch wood, we've not had an emergency during racing or during training, but he is actually currently in hospital. He took a little bit of a funny turn the other day, and it can literally happen like a light switch. So 1 minute he can be absolutely fine, the next minute it's straight down to the hospital, and we're trying to sort all that stuff out. However, with so with training and racing, if something does happen, we do have protocols in place. So for instance, Chris has got what's known as a peg in his stomach, which means that we can give him food and fluid directly into his stomach instead of him having to eat, which then minimizes the risk of him choking and then having an aspiration whilst we're racing or training together. It also means we're able to deliver medications whilst we're training and racing, because as you know, it can be quite a long day out, and he needs his medication. So yeah, so hopefully it will all go smoothly. But obviously with Chris, it can turn as quickly as it can fix itself.
So that's Chris. For you, you're pulling, pushing, and guiding Chris for the entirety of the race.
Yeah.
Physically, what kind of added complexities are there due to, training and racing and especially recovery?
So I've done a lot more strength work this year than I normally do. So my body's used to pulling myself around. It's not used to pulling double my body weight. And so I've been working quite a lot with a strength trainer just to make sure that all of my muscle groups are being well supported and I'm getting that strength and I'm increasing that durability. Me and my coach have also been working really closely, because one thing we have found is I can't actually stand up in the pedals whilst I'm pulling Chris along. So if we go up a hill, most people would start to, like, stand up on the pedals, get a bit more power through. I lose that. And we actually end up going downhill quite quickly if I end up doing that. So we try to avoid it, which means I've done a lot more seated power work, and tried to up my FTP without doing stand-up pedal work. And we've just adapted my training slightly so that I don't have to worry about not being able to stand up on the pedals. For the running, I also run with my son, so it actually feels really weird now when I'm running on my own, because I'm just so used to pushing something around that I forget what I'm meant to do with my arms. And I was running the other day and one arm was moving, and obviously I normally push one arm and the other wasn't moving. I was thinking, I can actually use both arms now. I might be able to go a little bit quicker. But yeah.
So logistically, you live, I believe you said 2.5 hours from Chris, and training isn't always possible together. Can you tell us about counterfeit Chris
Oh,
and
counterfeit
why,
Chris.
when you get to train together, it means so much more?
So, Counterfeit Chris is the nickname we've given to a bag of slate. And this bag of slate weighs 15 kilograms more than Chris does. And that was a deliberate choice so that when I do go to train with Chris, it's 15 kg less, so it becomes a lot easier. And it's a special moment when we get to train together. We try and organise to see each other at least every other week. I go down to Suffolk once a month, and I normally spend the weekend with him, and we can get some nice long bike rides or a nice long run in. But it's just special to share that moment with him and just see how much he enjoys it, and just hearing him, like chat away in the background, and shout at me when somebody's overtaken us because he doesn't like being overtaken. Um, but it's just special that we get to share that together.
So aside from the extra distance and time, will the full iron distance pose any additional unseen challenges for you or Chris?
Hopefully not. Obviously, we've tried to plan everything down to a T. We are very much planners in our family. We have to be with Chris. The biggest issue we've got at the moment is actually transport. And that's purely because of how much stuff we have to take with us. So obviously when you travel for an Ironman, normally you've got your bike box, then you've got a suitcase with all of your other stuff in it, plus if other people are coming with you, all of their luggage. For me and Chris to race, we've got his wheelchair, his kayak, my bike, and then his hoist, which we need for getting him in and out of bed, plus all of his luggage, plus all of his medications, plus all my stuff, plus a 1-year-old and all of a 1-year-old stuff, and then obviously mum, dad, and my partner's belongings as well. And only two of us can carry stuff at a time because one of us has the child, one of us has Chris. So got a lot more stuff, and we are currently working out how we're going to transport it all. But if push comes to shove, we will just have to make do, and we will, we're quite good at adapting. And as long as we've got the wheelchair and a bike, I'm sure we'll be able to make it work.
So it's very clear that adaptive sports equipment are not cheap, and
No,
it's too costly for a lot of people, probably most.
yes,
So you have set up a charity to help fund equipment so others, like your brother,
yeah.
can experience the joy of sport. Can you share about your charity's mission?
So we've set up our CIC so that we can give people grants so that they can go and purchase the equipment they need. And this can be any form of adaptive equipment, so like a prosthetic limb, if you need a running wheelchair, a hand cycle, anything like that. If you came to us, and we would be able to give you the money towards it. We also want to be able to give people the opportunity to give sport a go, because currently there is no opportunity to kind of rent a wheelchair before trying it, and it's a big investment. not a lot of people have got £6 to throw at something if they just want to give it a go. So we want to eventually have a fleet of wheelchairs that, again, somebody can contact us and say, hey, I really want to try running, but I need somebody to push me, but I can't afford £6,000 to go and buy a wheelchair just for my local park run. And then we'll be able to assist them, and we'll be able to loan them out a wheelchair so that they can go and give sport a try. And then hopefully they'll love it, and hopefully they'll want to, go and purchase their own equipment at a later date. But we just want to make sport accessible, and the additional cost of it is not just the actual adaptive equipment, it's also travel. It's having to pay for you and a guide to go somewhere. If you need somebody to go with you, that automatically doubles the cost of any event you do. Most races do give you a free guide, but you've still got to get there. It's still hotels, it's still food. It's a lot of additional cost that a lot of people won't have to pay. And we just want to make sport as cheap and accessible for everyone and anyone.
Well, that's an incredible endeavor. So it's apparent, very, very, very apparent how much your big brother means to you.
Yeah.
What has he taught you?
He's just taught me to never give up. And he will fight every day. And he has taught me that no matter what, there is always a way to do what you want. It might have to be a bit creative. You might have to think outside the box, but there is always a way of getting there. And you just have to want it. You just have to find that way.
And where can people learn more about adaptive sports and follow your Team Stewart's racing journey?
So we're on TikTok and Instagram. Our TikTok is at team.stewart and our Instagram is Team Stewart Racing. We also have a website called teamstewart.co.uk, I think it's .uk, where you can find out a bit more information about us.
I will make sure to put all those links at the bottom.
Thank you.
So Lizzie, I've really enjoyed our conversation today.
Thank you.
You and Chris demonstrate that disability does not equal inability, and have shown that with the right adaptations, attitude, and perseverance, anyone can overcome any barriers and achieve their goals.
Exactly, yeah.
Best of luck at Ironman Talon next month and Ironman Swansea in 2 days.
Thank you, yeah.
It's a pro series event, so I'll be watching it on TV.
Yeah, if you see a neon green tri-suit flash past, that's probably me.
Well, I'll be cheering you on, following your journey, and please, wishing you all the best of luck, and please, let's stay in touch.
Thank you.